Hi everyone, thank you for joining. We're just going to get started soon.
Thanks, Jackie. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar on amplifying your business for free through the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. Thank you for joining us. We're so excited that you're here. My name is Naomi Farrelly and I'll be your presenter today. And joining me is Jackie Hicks on technical support. We're delivering this webinar on behalf of Fraser Coast Tourism and Events as part of their upcoming Strategic Drive program. But before we get into it, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. And I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. Some housekeeping before we begin. The session today is going to be recorded and the resources will be shared with you. We welcome you to revisit the recording yourself and also share it with colleagues that maybe can't join us today and watch it on demand. If you have any questions as we go, please pop them into the Q&A box, which you'll see at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We'll collate these together and go through them at the end of the webinar today. If you're having any technical issues, also pop those in the chat box and Jackie will respond to you directly. So in this session today, we're going to cover what is the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse and why every eligible tourism business should be listed on there, how to set up your listing and get started with ATDW, and how to get the most out of your listing, including tips on writing your description and using images and videos and some extra resources to help you get started. We don't have long, so we'll get started. So you can focus on the content today. Jackie and I are going to turn off our videos so that you can really focus and listen to what we have to say. So what is the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse anyway? Essentially, it's a really big database of all the tourism products and experiences and services across Australia. It's a partnership between Tourism Australia and each of the state and territory tourism organisations, or STOs. It's a national platform, but it's administered at a state level. Its ultimate function is to support Australian tourism operators to extend their digital reach. We know how important an online presence is for tourism marketing, with around 85% of people using the internet to plan, inspire and book travel experiences. The average traveller visits around 22 travel-related sites during about 9.5 research sessions before they actually book online. So listings on sites like ATDW are really important to help you to be found online. They create like a billboard effect. They provide exposure for your business in lots of different places. So by setting up your ATDW listing, your product will be listed on the consumer websites for Tourism Australia's australia.com, which is the call to action for all of the Holiday Here This Year campaign activity that's currently happening. Tourism Events Queensland on queensland.com, and your regional tourism organisation website if you're a member. So for you, it's visitfrasercoast.com. In addition to that, there's also over 250 distribution partners globally that use the information from ATDW to populate their sites. So that one simple listing has the potential to give you global exposure and really amplify your online presence. Best of all, ATW is now free for Queensland operators to list. There was previously a charge to list, but this has been waived for the moment as part of the COVID recovery response. So now is a really good time to get your product listed. It's also really important for your relationship with your tourism organisation. So for Fraser Coast Tourism and Events and Tourism and Events Queensland, it's where they go to find products and experiences to include in their activities when they're planning marketing campaigns. So for example, Fraser Coast Tourism and Events are currently developing a drive program and marketing plan to support it. And businesses included on the drive itineraries will need to have an ATDW listing. So now's the time to get your listing set up or updated. So how does it work? So as a tourism supplier, you go online and you enter your listing details through atdw.com.au. Once you've loaded up all your details, and we'll talk through what those details are, it goes through to your state tourism organisation, so Tourism and Events Queensland. They maintain the quality of the listing, so they'll just review it to make sure that it meets the national content standards. So once it's then been approved, that listing is available to distribution partners to pull down the information that they need and publish onto their channel. So once it's approved, your listing will become available on australia.com, queensland.com and frasercoast.com as well. So then once that's happened and been activated, consumers can now see your product listing on relevant websites globally, creating that billboard effect that I talked about and extending your reach beyond what you're able to achieve on your own, and really helping you to expand your digital footprint and drive traffic back to your own website. So this is just an example from the Queensland.com website. When you go on there and you search on Fraser Coast, and look at the different products that are available here. Here's some of the listings that come up. So all of these product listings, whether they're tours or accommodation, are pulled from the Australian Tourism Data Warehouse. So the important stuff, how do you actually go about setting up your listing? Before you jump in and get started, it's always good to understand what information you're going to need and to have it ready to go. This is going to help you and make the job of creating your listing a lot easier and much quicker. And it means that you shouldn't kind of get stuck along the way. And, you know, we're all busy as tourism operators and business owners. There's lots of things going on. And sometimes we tend to go, oh, I'll come back to it later, and you kind of forget about it. So this is a really important thing to do. So if you understand what you need before you get started, it's going to make the job a lot easier for you. So firstly, before we get into the details of what you can list, let's talk about who can list. You need to make sure that you're eligible to list, and tourism businesses can list in the categories of accommodation, attractions, events, food and drink, hire, tours and transport. For each category, there's specific eligibility criteria, and we'll send you all the details around that criteria in the links following the webinar, so you can confirm your eligibility and the correct category for you before you get started. It's important to note there are some businesses that are ineligible to list in the database, and these include businesses that are purely web-based or virtual businesses, accommodation booking services, businesses who only list on booking websites and don't have their own digital presence, any human resource providers like cleaners, for example, wholesalers or inbound tour operators, and travel insurance providers. So once you've established that you are eligible to list on the site, what sort of information will you need? Well, there's some mandatory information that you have to include in your listing, and then there's also some optional information. So the mandatory details that you need to include are all listed here for you. And again, we'll send this out as part of the follow-up as well. So what you need to include is your business name and the description. So you've got about 50 to 200 words, the product type, your physical address, and other business details like your phone number and your email address. And it's important to note when you put in these contact details that they're the details for your customers, for them to contact you directly, your website URL and a booking link. And your accessibility details are now mandatory information to include in your listing. So that's looking at how accessible your business is for someone in a wheelchair or someone with vision impairments or other disabilities. And there's categories there and tick boxes that you can check to identify that for your business. You need to really make sure that when you're including those accessibility details that you're really accurate so that customers can make an informed decision about whether or not your business is right for them. You also need to include photos, at least one, but ideally up to 10 of some really good quality photos to showcase your product or experience as well. The optional information that you can include on your listing, there's a whole lot of extra stuff that you can include. So it's all listed here: videos, price details, opening hours, other facilities, memberships, accreditation, social accounts. You don't have to include these, but it's best to include as much information as possible on your listing to give potential visitors the most complete view of your business. So then to get your business listing set up and you've gathered your information, you know what you need, you've got everything together and ready to go, you need to go to attdw.com.au, and we'll send you all the links so that you can go straight there and then follow the step-by-step instructions as well that we'll send to you. So you go online to attdw.com.au and then you click on either register if you're creating a new listing, or you click on login if you've got an existing listing. And then basically you follow the prompts through for a new listing, complete all the details. And if you're making changes to an existing listing, you just update the sections that you want to update. Then once you've done, loaded up all your information, you submit your listing or your changes. And then it goes through, like I said earlier, through to your SEO, so Tourism and Events Queensland, for that quality review. They'll approve it. And then usually within around 48 hours, your listing is live. Now, importantly, like most things in the digital space and in the marketing space, this isn't a set and forget activity. What you really need to do is, once you've set up your listing is keep it up to date as well, which is really important to add new images or products information or videos regularly. It's good for your listing, but it's also really good for your overall SEO as well. So once you've set everything up and you're loaded on the site, this is just an example of one of the properties in Fraser Coast, their listing, which sits on the Fraser Coast website, of how it actually looks when it comes up online. So you can see you've got all the contact details at the top there. There's some disability access information there as well. The pricing is included, then a description of the property and the maps included as well. So that's the basics that you need to get started, but I don't want you all just to have a basic standard listing. We really want you to create a listing that inspires potential customers and gets them to actually click through to your website, that once they've read about the details and found you through ATDW on any of those tourism websites, that they're clicking through and they want to find out more. So to do this, you really need to include as much information as possible and make sure that you're selling your product or experience. Don't make the mistake of thinking that this is just a government website listing, which time and time again I see businesses do. They think, oh, I'm listing with the state tourism organisation. It's just for the government. It's for the consumer. It's a marketing channel and it's a free marketing channel for you. So make the most of it when you're writing your listing. So it's really important to include as much information as you can, because there's nothing worse as a consumer when they're looking for information to have gaps in the product details that you're presenting, because there's so much information and so many options, they'll just click and they'll go somewhere else. So really try and sell your experience. So let's talk about what a good listing looks like. So when you write your business description, you really want to make sure that you're writing it for customers. Think about your customers, think about the unique selling points of your business and what the benefits are for your businesses to visitors that are coming to see you. Like I said before, talk to your customers. Don't make the mistake of thinking that you're talking to the government. So some key things to consider when writing your description. Think about how many words that you've got in that business description. So you've got up to 200 when you're writing the description itself, and really make the most of them. Make sure you're being really experiential in the way that you're talking and the language that you use, and write with that customer in mind. Avoid any first person language and use short sentences. We know in terms of online content, short sentences are best, and using dot points and things like that are the best for people when they're reading online. Don't use jargon. And also when you're talking about your business, make sure you sell the destination as well. Include some information about the destination where you are and the other experiences that are available or on offer, or reasons why people would come to the Fraser Coast. Next, when you're looking at images, they're so important. We all know that a picture tells 1,000 words. So really think about those images that you use on your listing, not just on your listing, but in your marketing overall. So you can upload at least one image, but can have up to 10. So really, again, like I said, make sure you include as much information as possible. And so if you've got 10 really good quality images that reflect your business, use all 10. There's some technical details there that you need to consider when you're selecting your images, about the size, the format, that they can only be in landscape, the file type, and the size of the image itself in terms of the quality. That posters and collages or images with text won't be accepted. Really importantly, when you're uploading your images, to add some alt text to the image, so that you get the option as you're loading your images there to add alt text. Please make sure that you do that. So that's really adding a caption or some information about the image itself, a description of it, that gets captured in by search engines when you're looking at SEO, but also for people with vision impairments. It's the way that the internet explains what that image is to them. So it's important to add that little piece of information, and also credit the photographer if you need to as well. Again, images, first impressions account. So if you can use professional images, include people. That's really important, to include people wherever you can. Research shows that travelers, when they're really looking to find images that have people in them that reflect themselves, so they can see themselves in the picture. So include people where you can, and really showcase the experience of your product and highlight some of those key features that you've talked about in the description when you're choosing your images. So next, if you've got video, you can upload some videos as well to your ATDW listing. And we know that video is really increasingly important in tourism marketing. Consumers love visual content and they can consume it so much more easily than words and images. It's a really powerful medium to share stories through and to inspire and connect with your customers. So if you can create videos, I would really encourage you to do that, to make some videos to use in your marketing, not just on ATDW, but across the board as well. So again, when you're uploading videos to ATDW, there's some technical information there. So you need to upload either via YouTube or a Vimeo URL with a business account. And you need to make sure your videos are publicly available. And you can't upload any videos that contain advertisements. So it's just really that product information and showing your product and experience. Just like when you're looking at photos, importantly for videos is that you want to make it really good quality. Keep them short. 30 to 90 seconds is usually the recommended length. People have short attention spans these days and they're getting shorter and shorter as we consume so much content. So keep it really short and sharp and use it again to tell that story. Be creative when you're creating videos. So think about the different ways that you can use video to showcase different aspects of your business. So it could be an overview of your property overall or your tour. It could be different room types, or you could have a different video for each tour type as well. So get creative. And, you know, it's relatively new video for most tourism businesses. It's something that we haven't really dabbled in before. I know in my business, it's something that I'm learning about and learning to be able to do. We've all got the tools in our pocket to do that with our iPhones these days and cameras on our phones. So we can get started and have a go. And with a few other simple tools, you can start to practice to create your videos. But if you're not comfortable to do that, really we encourage you to engage a professional to help you get started as well. So another important thing you need to consider with your ATDW listing, and these days, you know, with our marketing overall, is to keep our customers up to date around any COVID safe practices or changes that are happening in our business due to COVID. So you might be aware that Tourism Queensland have a Good to Go campaign, which supports and encourages businesses to really talk about whether they're good to go, and they promote those businesses that are COVID accredited and safe and ready to operate in a COVID safe way. So you can do this through your ATDW listing. So when you're setting up your listing, you'll have the option to tick some boxes to say whether or not you have COVID safe documentation in place. And also there's the option to say whether or not you've completed COVID ready and or COVID clean programs through accredited organisations. So you can tick those boxes, and once you do that with your listing, you'll get that good to go symbol come up on your ATDW listing, so consumers can see that you are a COVID ready business. So it's important to do that. Also, it's important, you know, as things change every day these days in the world, to keep your descriptions up to date to reflect any changes to your business status as things change, and make sure that the product information that you have reflects your current operation. So it's a good routine to get into anyway, about updating your product information on ATDW regularly. If things are changing around business operations, hop online and update it just on your ATDW listing, but also across all of your online listings as well. So that is a really quick, brief overview of ATDW and why it's important. So to recap, that one listing is so important as it gets you onto your RTO website, if you're a member, the STO website, and also Australia.com, and then connects you through to many more with those distributors that are operating globally and pulling data from ATDW. It's free. You list online via atdw.com.au. And we'll send you all of the links in the follow-up from today so you can get straight to the pages that you need to. It's important to write a great description with your customer in mind when you're writing, and use really good quality images with people in them where you can. Start to use videos to tell the story of your business and include them in your listing, and make sure that you keep that listing up to date, including that COVID safe status. But you do need to update your listing every 12 months with ATDW, because otherwise the listing will expire and it will drop off the site. So keep your listing up to date and fresh and current. So finally, we've got some resources and tools that we'll be sharing with you from the follow-up from today. So there will be the recording of the session. You'll also get a link to a document about how to set up your listing, which is a real step-by-step document that we've created that goes through in real detail for you about how to load that listing onto ATDW, covers what we've talked about today and some more. We'll get you the links to the specific category criteria so you can decide where your product sits and what category you should be listing under, and also the specific guidelines for ATDW, any requirements and the guidelines for loading of things there as well, and the links to the ATDW FAQ section if you've got questions as you go. You do also have support from the Fraser Coast Tourism and Events team as you're loading your listings, so the contact details are there for Mark and Brian and the industry development team. So you can get in touch with them and they can help you with your listing. And then there's also the STO, so Tourism and Events Queensland. If you need further technical support, we'll get you their contact details so that you can get in touch and get your listing all set up and good to go. So finally, here at Sparrowley Group, we're here to help as well. So if you do have questions as you're setting up the listing, you can always reach out to me. My details are there if you do want to get in touch as you're setting up the listing on ATDW. So that's all from me. So now we'll open up to any questions. So Jackie, do we have any questions come through on the chat today?
Thanks, Naomi. Yeah, we've got a couple. So can you just recap on how someone can find out if they do already have a listing?
Yeah, for sure. So the best thing to do to check if you've already got a listing is to go onto atdw.com.au and you can actually search on there for all of the listings. It's best to search through that website because it has all listings rather than the STO website, which will only have the current active listings. So hop onto atdw.com.au and you can search on there for listings.
Great. So if someone does have a listing, but it might be expired, would someone have to create a whole new listing?
So the first thing to do if your listing might have expired, which they do, as I said, after 12 months if you haven't updated your listing, is to go back to atdw.com.au and see if you can log into the site and you may be able to reactivate your listing through the login process, update it and then resubmit it to be reactivated. So that's the first step. If that doesn't work for you, best to contact your STO, so Tourism and Events Queensland, through the details that we'll share with you to see if they are able to reactivate that listing. And if they aren't able to reactivate that old listing, then you will need to create a new one. So first of all, check with ATDW and then Tourism and Events Queensland to see if you can reactivate it.
Yeah, great. And just another question. So you mentioned before that it's free at the moment. So how much is it normally to list in Queensland?
Yeah, so our understanding, so that it's free at the moment to list on ATDW and it is for a period of 2 years as part of their COVID recovery response. But normally, previously, it was around about $150 per year to list on ATDW. So if you want some more information around that costings, it's probably best to reach out to the team at Fraser Coast Tourism and Events and talk to them about the listings and also about their membership and how the listings can be incorporated into that membership as well.
Great. And just one final question. So as I'm making updates or if I'm creating a new listing, how long would it take for my listing to show up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it does take, as I said, you need to go back through that review process for that quality control with Tourism and Events Queensland. It can take anywhere from 24 hours through to 5 business days. Generally speaking, it sits around at that 48-hour mark. So I would say allow 48 hours. If you haven't seen it come up after that period of time, you might want to just go back and touch base with Tourism and Events Queensland just to see if there's been any problems. Your listing may have been rejected or held up for some reason. So around 48 hours is the average, but anywhere from 24 hours to 5 business days.
And we just have a note from Brian. So at Fraser Coast Tourism and Events, we have access to the back end to check the listings and they can make basic changes, but they do encourage the operators to manage that on their own. If operators need to check anything, they can ask the Fraser Coast Tourism and Events team of Brian and Mark to check anything they can. But yeah, best to ask them in the first instance or go direct to the STO or to ATDW. And Fraser Coast have made up a sheet of tables of pages on creating, updating and disabling to assist operators as well.
Great. So you've got a great resource there with the Fraser Coast Tourism and Events team. So Brian and Mark. So yeah, get in touch with them in the first instance to get some help to get your listing set up. But I really do like that point that Brian made, that they can help you with some basic stuff in the back end to get things listed for you. But it's really important as a business owner that you take control of your own listing and build your own listing and be able to have the skills and the knowledge to be able to update it and keep it up to date on your own, because it is really a marketing tool for your business.
Yeah, great. That's all the questions, Naomi. So back over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate your time. We do know that as small business owners, it is hard to make time sometimes to invest in your business and learn new skills. So thanks for joining us on the webinar today. We will get the resources out to you as soon as possible so that you've got everything and you can come back to the video and watch it again. Go through those resources and, of course, get in touch with the Fraser Coast Tourism and Events team if you do have any further questions. So thank you, everyone, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Jackie.